has changed through these years. Watch your pastor, my spiritual son, Bishop Murphy, mentor her and faithful. Worked in the background.
Good evening. Thank you for coming on in. Going to get started very shortly. Go ahead and share the video. Let them know that we are on for another segment of Worth the Wait. Come on in, introduce yourself, let me know that you're here. Feel free to hit share and let your friends, those on your timeline, know that we are on for another segment of Worth the Wait. So I'm going to begin shortly, just giving people time to join in, but feel free to share. And let people know on your timeline that we are on for another edition of Worth the Wait, for a new segment of the series. So go ahead and share. Go ahead and say hi so I know that you're here and I can say hi specifically to you. We're going to begin shortly. Again, we're going to begin shortly. Feel free to hit the share button. Let other people know that we are on for another segment of Worth the Wait. Please feel free to comment, say hello, let me know that you're on, you're here. Alright, so I'm going to jump in. As always, people can watch the replay. So, good evening. Today is Monday, September 25th, 2017, and this is another edition of the Worth the Wait series. We've been doing this since July, going very strong, so I'm excited about that. I really appreciate all of you who have been consistent and faithful, joining in every Monday, sharing the video, leaving comments, participating. It is greatly appreciated. So I do appreciate your support in this effort. Hopefully what is shared or what is being discussed or ministered to you has an impact upon you, and that you are encouraged in your faith walk, and those of you who are walking in sexual purity, that you are encouraged as well. So for those who do not know who I am, my name is Shanae Joy Stringer. I am the founder, the visionary behind Women Who Rock. Women Who Rock stands for Women Who Reign, Obey, Conquer, and Kingdom Build. I held my first conference in March of this year. Stay tuned for details for the second annual conference of March of next year. I'm also the owner of a event planning company here in South Florida known as BLAQ Events, Black Events. And I also realized that, hopefully I can find it, that I have not shared with you, at least in this forum, that I am the author of a children's book. My first book is entitled Princess N's First Day of School. So I am an author, and the book is available on Amazon. There's an ebook version as well as print copy. You can also inbox me personally. If you know me personally, call me, text me, and I would be glad. Hi, Gotti. Thank you for joining. I would be glad to go ahead and ship you a signed autograph copy. So that's my spiel. So I want to jump in and get started. I don't intend to be before you too long on tonight, but I transitioned. We've been dealing with a variety of topics as it relates to waiting for marriage. And tonight's topic deals with the debate about dating versus courtship. And what exactly is what's the foreground behind the scenes of this debate between courtship and dating. So I wanted to explore that topic, and in fact, over the next few weeks, that will be the subject matter or the basis matter of the subjects that will be shared with you, is dealing with different aspects of dating and what exactly does that mean, what exactly does that look like, especially for those who are single as well as, say, those who are believers, right? And so when I thought about, actually, let me do my shout outs. So first and foremost, I want to shout out Pastor Geralda Larkins. She has a Kingdom Summit, a conference this Friday. I will be in the building. It's a fourth quarter impartation on Friday night. I believe her apostle, Samantha Williams, is one of the speakers, and out of Georgia, Apostle Harrison will also be in the building. So I will be there on Friday night. It's at Nova Southeastern University, I believe in the Carlos or Carl DeSantis building. And then on Saturday morning, there will be some breakout workshops with some powerful, influential women in the marketplace, because I think sometimes we believe in the body of Christ that ministry is totally separate from marketplace, that we only can dominate one or the other, and that's not true. We do have the ability. Yes, you can be a believer and still dominate in the marketplace. You can still build your business on the foundation of the word, and so it's important to know how to incorporate both. She's an awesome visionary strategist. She was also ordained this year as a pastor. Great woman of God. Great speaker. The other person I want to shout out is Minister Chandrika Cook. She doesn't like the title minister, but I'm going to give her the reverence that's due. She joined me on last week. If you did not catch last week's video, I'm going to share it again. It was very powerful. I know many of you here in Miami did not have power, so you may not have been able to log on, but it was very powerful. And we talked about can you identify the Delilahs in your life? So, and we were still, addressing identity. And so it's important that you watch that video. It was very informative, and being able to glean from her knowledge and her spiritual insight was amazing. So I will go ahead and share that video again with you. If you weren't able to catch it, go ahead and watch the replay. The other thing I want to shout out is there's a tour coming with R.C. Blake, Bishop R.C. Blake, called Queenology, February 2nd, I believe. Don't quote me, but it's in February. Women, I encourage you to attend this conference. It is quite life-changing, quite impactful. I've heard nothing but good things from its initial conference this year that was held in Texas. So please support that effort. I know that Lorraine Simons and Rashida Jackson, Pastor Rashida Jackson, are some ambassadors and daughters, spiritual daughters of Bishop Blake here locally, and I know they're helping with that conference. Hello, Attorney Jacqueline. Thank you today for supporting my book and your words of wisdom. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So I've done my shout outs. Please go and connect and support these people in their efforts. So let's just start. So how many of you have gone on a date, right? all of us at some point, if you're married or you're dating, or maybe you're on a break, dating sabbatical, we all have gone on a date at some point. Hi, Latrice, thank you for joining on tonight. And, and maybe some of us are currently dating, whatever your status may be. But I like to believe our dating practices, motives have actually changed over time. And I realized that how I went about dating in my early 20s is much different than how I date now in my early 30s. And hopefully the same is the case for you all that are viewing and are in fact single. Because at the end of the day, it's really a matter of your mindset, right? Or the shifting of your mindset. And I don't know about you, but the reality of not dating in the era of tradition from my grandparents' days has been a little disheartening, because who would have thought it would be this complicated, right? And so the reality is that we live in modern times in which we're able to communicate and connect with others via technology in a way that has expanded our reach. In this effort, some well-meaning traditions have in fact dissipated and getting lost in the use of technology. We now have people that decide that they want to have a text relationship with you, right? They only want to text. They rarely want to hear your voice. They rarely want to call. Or now we live in the age of online dating, or sliding in people's inboxes or DMs. It's not necessarily we go out and organically meet people. We now meet people through other means, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just different. It's not what our grandparents or maybe even some of our parents did in order to come together, join together, and be married. And so I think for us, as we deal with or address the issues of dating versus courting, is that for us, it's important as people who have been created with purpose, everything we do should have a purpose. And if we are to do or say something, God should be able to get the glory from it. No, I'm not saying that you should be toting your Bible on your dates. I'm not saying that when you get on FaceTime with them or you're on your Facebook video with them that you all join in, singing hymns. Nor am I telling you that every time you're in the company of the opposite sex or someone that you're interested in, that you're constantly shouting hallelujah. I'm not saying that at all. However, nothing you do should keep you out of the will of God, distract or delay you from your purpose, or cause an unbeliever to question your claims to be a believer. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is the same principles, the same promises, the same word of God that guides you in your daily life, that guides you, in business, the same principles, promises of God that will guide you in how you are a parent should be the same principles that should guide you even in your dating life, right? So anything that doesn't give God glory, anything that, will make you feel ashamed or make you feel that you are not obeying the word of God, then you have to question, is that something you should be doing? And regardless if it is in dating or in business or in friendship, whatever it may be in your daily walk. And so I am a strong believer that we need to clear the air about dating versus courting. And so first things first, let's address the basics. There is a clear difference between dating and courting. Let's start with dating. Dating is defined as to go out with someone in whom one is romantically or sexually interested in, right? So that's Google's definition. And its Latin root has the word data in it. And data is facts and statistics collected together for reference or analysis. It also can be described as things known or assumed as fact, making the basis of reasoning or calculation. And so my word to you is that dating should be intentional and purposeful. We often agree to a first date that turns into a series of other dates, and then a couple months in, especially for us women, we find ourselves questioning, what are we and where is this going? A very common response to that, especially in modern times, is let's go with the flow. Or there's no need for titles. Well, 1 Corinthians Corinthians 14:33 says, "For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace." Posing those questions should be warning signs to you that confusion is in fact present. We may not know every step we are to take, but we should be aware of the destination we are trying to reach. So if you don't have peace about something or someone, you should be seeking God for a revelation about it and or them. And so the average modern day single who's dating or desiring to date either has no clear intent in doing so or are hesitant to share what that intent is. There are a host of reasons why people date and entertain the company of another. Sometimes it's for food. Some people really do go on dates just so that they can eat, right? And that's what a lot of men that I've seen complain about, that women only go out with you just to get a free meal. I disagree with that, but that's just what some people believe. Sometimes it's for money, what they can get out of you. It can be for company because they may be lonesome or boredom. Now, I disagree with dating someone just because you're lonesome or boredom, because as I've said in previous videos, is that one, you need to be a complete, fully developed individual. That means mentally, socially, emotionally. So if you feel that you are bored or you're lonesome and you're looking for someone to help you pass over the boredom, that's not necessarily a promise or guarantee when you connect with that person. And this is a new thing, apparently, that some people will date you to find residence. They need somewhere to lay their head, and so I guess if they can talk well enough or date you long enough or come up with enough funds to get your attention, they are then seeking residence with you. Apparently it happens. And then, of course, we know that some people date simply looking for someone that they can have sexual relationships with, and that ultimately becomes the basis of their relationship because that was the initial intent anyway. And so if we were, in fact, more transparent with one another, I believe that we don't give room for the spirit of confusion to occupy space in our relationship and lives in general. The individual who dates without clear intent or purpose and desires to go with the flow with you, you should actually, in fact, be wary of them. Why? Because, for starters, they're likely unconscious of their own time and the time of the person they have taken interest in. So I looked at scripture, and let me go ahead and throw this side note in. There are no scriptures, specific scriptures that relate to dating and or courtship. Why? Because you don't find that in the Bible. You're not going to find the word dating. You're not going to find the word date unless it's referring to like time frame, or the word courting or courtship in the Bible. Why? Because the Bible speaks of marriage. It has a strong desire, strong encouragement for marriage, and not necessarily dating, because if you look, a lot of those marriages were arranged in the Bible. So the Bible doesn't give us clear guidance on dating and courting. However, I do believe there are scriptures, there are principles in there that should guide a believer in how they operate in their singleness leading up to marriage. Right? Because the Bible does tell us specifically how we should be mothers, how we should be fathers, how we should be helpers and helpmates, how we should be wives and husbands, not boyfriends and girlfriends. So Ephesians 5:16, the King James Version says, 5:15 through 16 says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil." The Message version says, "So watch your step, use your head, make most of every chance you get. These are desperate times." And I believe that the Bible tells us, leave tomorrow for itself. Just worry about, today. But don't let somebody that has no idea what's going on with their time, has no really plan for their time, occupy your time. They have no sense of time. They clearly have no sense of direction. So why are you allowing them to occupy your time and not knowing where it's going? Okay? And then James 4:14 says, "Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanishes away. So again, going back to time, we like to believe we have a lot of time, and no, I'm not saying put a rush on things, but there should be, and when you're dating, someone should be respectful of your time and the time that you're giving them, okay? Second, the reason why I believe you should be weary of somebody that's dating and they don't have clear intent or purpose behind it is that they lack focus or direction. An individual that is focused, walking on their path or desiring, walking on their path of destiny, aren't allowing or entertaining distractions and are very considerate about anything or anyone that could cause a delay, right? And the reality is dating, in fact, can be a distraction. It really is. It does require some time. It does require you to give up some energy, some time, some space. That's just going to be a requirement. And so Psalm 32:8 says, I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. The Message version says, let me give you some good advice. I'm looking you in the eye and give it to you straight. God gives us direction. God gives us instructions, very clear instructions on directing our path. And so it is not good sense to connect with someone that doesn't know where they're going, doesn't have any clear focus. And let's be honest, if you're very focused on what you're doing, focused on your goals, you're not just allowing anybody to occupy your time. You're going to be straight up with them and let them know, listen, my time is precious and so is yours. And so if I'm going to give you some of that time, meaning I'm taking away some time from that book I'm supposed to be writing, or that class I'm supposed to be taking, that business I'm starting to build up, if I'm taking away time from that, I need you to respect that. And so anyone that's serious about their intentions about dating, they're going to, one, let you know that up front, but more importantly, they're not just letting anybody just occupy that time that could be used for something else. And thirdly, they are probably a serial dater, okay? And not Bible, none of that, just me. I have an issue with people who are serial daters. We live in a society where variety is the spice of life, and where people treat royals, because you are, daughters and sons of the Most High, you are royalty, okay? We know your place, know who you are. We come from a place where people treat royals like commoners, right? And what should be a choice as just another option. And so you have to be willing to not allow people to just treat you any kind of way. And the issue I have with serial daters is that how do you honestly, sincerely get to know multiple people? How do you get to know multiple people at the same time? Genuinely get to know them. One, how do you get to be vulnerable with all those different people all at once? It's literally impossible. There's no way you can give equal amount of time to all those people. And I get it. You may not want to be exclusive with someone initially. You may not want to be exclusive with the first person you meet. And I get there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is be clear about it. Be intentional about it. Be forthcoming about it. And so I think I've shared that before, that I'm part of a singles group. And so there are some people in there that, are serial daters. There are some people who like to be exclusive. And one of the arguments, I don't see my Sora on here, Rosa, she always talks about those who are hoteps. I realized that in the Bible it does talk about polygamy, right? Where, many of the well-known people in the Bible, they had plenty of concubines, they had wives, so on and so forth. And then I know that the hoteps usually say that, monogamy is not normal. If you go back to your history, many of the great, Egyptian kings and queens, they had multiple wives. Well, my counter argument to that is those men and women were able to provide for their wives and their many concubines. So if you're going to be a serial dater, because what I found, especially in these single groups, is the men who complain about spending the money the most, spending money on dating the most, or supposedly wasting money the most, are men who try to date, or women who try to date multiple people. Dating costs money. And so how are you going to split your funds between multiple women? So you can't complain, or you can't compare really to what was going on You can't compare to what the Egyptians were doing, or famous kings and queens were doing, and you can't compare that, in fact, to the people of the Bible. Why? Because they had the wealth and riches to take care of hundreds of concubines. They had it. Know your limitations. You know what your funds are. You know what your economics look like. So you know if you can date multiple women at one time or multiple men at one time. Dating is an investment, and it's going to require some money. So if you know your funds are limited, then you might want to limit how many people you're spending time with. Richard says, gotta start chipping away the rough edges and find out who's worth giving more time. I agree, you do. And I'm not saying the first person, like I said, I'm not saying the first person you connect with is who you go exclusively with, but just be mindful about who you're connecting with. And so dating at the onset usually has no end goal. It has no destination, which allows many detours and delays to be encountered on the pathway. And I can attest to that. I can say that I have, got in contact with people or have entertained people with no inclination of where it could go or where I wanted to go. It was just that, we like each other, let's date. They asked me out, so I'm going. And so, obviously, I'm still single, I'm not married. So, clearly there was a lack of direction, and ultimately we didn't go far, probably anywhere anyway. Even if someone who is dating has no desire to be married, they should make known their purpose for these set appointments at specific locations and times with a specific individual or a specific group of people. It's very important that you say that. I know we like to steer away from having certain conversations, or we feel like, you don't have to divulge all this information at the onset, but I believe that so much time wasted could be avoided if we go ahead and say that at the onset. I'm just dating to pass the time. I'm just dating, because I'm looking for friends. I'm just dating because I want to have sex. Whatever it is, just be honest. I think we'll get a lot further with a lot more transparency. So how do you get rid of someone who you know is wasting mine and his time? Tell them. Be very specific. Ask the question, what is it that you want from me? Me specifically. I'm not talking about any other woman. I'm not talking about women in general. What is it that you want from me? Do you want to pursue a relationship? Do you want to be married? Or is this just, we're just passing time because you need a companion, because you don't want to eat, go out to dinner by yourself. You don't want to go to the movies alone. Whatever it may be. Or maybe your parents are pressuring you to bring somebody. The holidays are coming, so I suppose it's cuffing season. And so now, here you are. And so you have to be willing to be honest with them. Tell them what you want. How about that? Start there. Tell them, well, this is what I'm looking for. These are my expectations. This is what I am desiring. And so are you aligned with that? Are we like-minded about that? And if they say no, it's okay. Guess what? You just weeded them out and cleared the air, cleared the space for somebody who is, in fact, meant for you, who is, in fact, interested in the same thing as you are. And maybe they are, but they maybe were waiting for you to broach the conversation. We can't make assumptions, but we do need to have transparency and have that conversation. Be willing to tell people what you want. And so I want to touch back on date and its root, the root word data. In your experience and exchanges with the opposite sex, you should be and should have collected data that has, in essence, framed how you view the opposite sex, the standards or expectations you now set for yourselves and the opposite sex, even some of your preferences or those who subscribe to a type. But the greatest data you should have collected in your dating resume, in your dating experience, should have been about yourself. What kind of woman or man are you at your core? What do you have to offer to the opposite sex? What or who heightens your insecurities? What or who drives or motivates you? Are you who you're trying to attract? Are you emotionally or mentally healthy to date? What are your deal breakers? Are you celibate, practicing abstinence? Is that an area that you're struggling with? Do you know how to pursue for the men? And women, do you know how to be pursued? All of these are things you should have learned by now, especially my 30 and up crew. These are things that you should have collected data on in your dating experience already. A lot of times we think that, oh, when we're dating, we're just trying to get to know so much about that person. No, I also want to know, how do I feel about you? What's my level of comfort with you? Do I really feel that I can be vulnerable with you? I'm now also assessing myself. What is my emotions around you? Do you trigger certain insecurities in me? Do you trigger a fear in me? Is there something about you? Do you have a temper? And I know that that's a deal breaker for me. For instance, I actually asked someone who was interested in me, what are their deal breakers? And one of the things we talked about, which I said for me, my deal breaker is cheating. But the reality is, it took me being cheated on, an experience in my dating life, for me to realize that that was a deal breaker. Now, at the time, it actually wasn't. It should have been. And I continued to date a person that, violated my trust, that didn't mind stepping outside the relationship, and continued on, and they continued to do what they did. And so it took going through that experience and realizing that for somebody, they probably could handle that. But for me, that's not something I can handle, so therefore it's a deal breaker. And so therefore I'm able to realize that, right? And so I'm going to throw this in for free. A lot of us wouldn't be in long-term dating relationships or have remained in fruitless situationships or even laid and procreated with some beasts. You got to catch that from the very first video. If we didn't get weary in dating. Galatians 6:9 says, and let us not be weary and well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. That's King James Version. The Message Version says, so let's not allow ourselves to get fatigued doing good. At the right time, we will harvest a good crop if we don't give up or quit. Right now, therefore, every time we get the chance, let us work for the benefit of all, starting with the people closest to us in the community of faith. And so you may have started in your, dating career maybe as a teenager, maybe started dating in college or early 20s as the good girl or good guy who encountered those who may have taken advantage of you. They may have abused you. They may have disrespected you, hurt you, or simply you remain because you fear there is nothing better on the horizon, or this is the best you will receive, or so you've told yourself, or you have simply settled. And I come to remind you, don't get weary in due season. You will be found, women. You will find your helpmate, men. Don't let your standards go. Don't stop demanding respect and treatment worthy of your royal being. And if in order to reclaim your time, your identity, your foundation leads you to take a break from dating, the dating scene, be willing to do so. You will not miss out on what God has for you or who he has for you. There's no, you may possibly delay it, but completely thwarted, no, that's not going to happen. So now that we've covered dating, let's transition to courtship. Courtship or courting is defined as a period during which a couple develops a romantic relationship, especially with a view to marriage. It's behavior designed to persuade someone to marry or develop romantic relationships with one. Courting or courtship has a clear intent and purpose. The intent or purpose is known at the onset, and the intent and purpose should be marriage. One of the things I realized about courtship is that it creates parameters. Now, we may not obviously subscribe to these things, but essentially if we are following courtship and courting as it was originally intended to be, it would create parameters. For some people, that means absolutely no physical touch. Like they really wait until they get to the altar to kiss. That may not be for you. There's absolutely no physical contact, not even holding hands. No staying over or spending the night, and clearly no sex. One of the other things about courtship is that it demands accountability. There is wise counsel being sought out in a courtship, meaning that, parents are involved in the process, or close mentors, spiritual mentors are involved in the process. Even that person's ministers are involved in the process. I believe one of my god sisters, her husband sought out her minister first, asking permission from her minister to court her, and then also her parents. So everybody was involved in the process. It also helped them be accountable, also provided them with guidance in their dating process, in their dating experience. or courting experience, I should say. It also promotes sexual purity. I stress, I promote, worth the wait, and there's nothing wrong with sexual purity. It is okay to wait, and that's essentially what courtship truly, its foundation promotes, is that you're going to wait until you're married. Why? Because it's almost like an interview, essentially. They're going to really assess, are you really prepared for this job? Are you really skilled or expertise at this job that you're applying for? And are you a good fit? Do we work well together? Are we good to be in partnership? Are we two people that can live cohesively? Do we share same values, morals? And so, like I said, guided by like-mindedness. It helps you to explore, do you have the same morals? Do you have the same values? And it's not emotionally based. And someone who desires to be married should desire to court or, in fact, be courted. It's very simple. I'm not dating. You should desire to be courted or to court someone if your desire is to be, in fact, married. So going back to what my Sora Carla said, how do you express that? We have a tendency to date or meet and spend time and money and then ask questions later. What if we, in fact, we ordered the steps? We meet or be introduced to someone, we have a series of conversations, and then we meet. When you stay away from the shallow part of dating, I always say that, the shallow pool, and dive deep with thought-provoking questions, you can, in fact, discern if you both share interests, vision, moral goals, and more importantly, share the same intent for dating, if you're not intending to be married, or, in fact, courtship, if you are intended to get married. I'm not going to tell you not to date. I'm not telling you to not be courted, but I will tell you whatever you do, you should be intentional about it and purposeful with your time, your intention, and even your money. Who and what you're investing in, because you can be like Representative Maxine Waters, and you can find yourself wanting to reclaim your time more often than necessary. Why? Because there was a lack of disclosure by you and the person that you are interested in. We have to ask those questions. There's a relationship coach, Jay Thomas. You can go ahead and follow him. You can follow him on social media. And that's one of the things he talks about, is he promotes having conversations before you go on a date. We used to have a tendency to go on the date, then have the conversation. What happens how could that change if we, in fact, choose to meet the person or be introduced to that person and have a series of conversations and go on a date? Because a lot of times we could go on a date and there's no chemistry. We can go on a date and realize that person really doesn't know how to carry on a conversation, or they don't share the same values. Now, especially for the men who usually pay on these dates, modern time women are paying for dates too. You can find and save yourself a lot of money if you have those conversations beforehand. Go ahead and let them know. Share your interests. I think about, there was a video on Facebook that was shared. This lady was 36 years old. She had to be like 6'4", I want to say. And obviously, her height per se presented an issue with dating. And she went on a date with she's a very attractive woman. She went on a date with an attractive man, and they had a perfect date. It was recorded. It was on a TV show. And he talked about her chemistry, how he was like, her height didn't bother him. He was just very attracted to her, loved her conversation. And she expressed that she was interested in him, that they had traveled in the same circle, so it was just perfect timing. They were familiar with each other in order to go on this date. So at the end of the night, he was walking her to her door, and he asked her about going up upstairs, not ending the date there. And so she said at the bottom step, well, we can go upstairs, but I need you to know that I'm a virgin. So the only thing that will happen if you go up these stairs is we're going to continue the conversation. Nothing else is going to happen. Do you know, because she was a virgin, do you know he walked away from her? And I thought that was the craziest thing. They had the greatest chemistry. He was so into her and so attracted to her, supposedly not concerned about his height, not intimidated by her or, what she was doing. I believe she was a lawyer or something professional. And he was like, well, on that note, good luck with that. Good night. Really? And so I feel that, and let me say this: I'm not saying that on your first conversation you disclose your whole, your whole dating history. You disclose everything about you. And no, I don't even believe you have to disclose that you are a virgin in your first conversation. You may start off with talking about how do you feel about sexual purity? How do you feel about, celibacy? How do you feel about, waiting? How do you feel about practicing abstinence? You can have that before you necessarily fully disclose I'm a virgin or, I am waiting, whatever it may be. But don't be afraid to disclose that information. Why? Because obviously he walked away, and so that wasn't the person for her. But the person for you will not be intimidated by that. Also saying that I've seen in It's Okay Boo, thanks for joining in, Shantae, hi Tia. It's also important too that don't be afraid to tell somebody that you want to get married. I have seen in conversations and observed on posts where men will say, if a woman talks about marriage at the first date or a woman talks about marriage when we first start talking, it's a turnoff. Maybe she's aggressive or, I'm a little concerned, about her being married. Why? Why does that concern you? Because guess what? If you were intentional about marriage, someone discussing marriage wouldn't intimidate you. That wouldn't even make you fearful. And so, to me, if a man talks about marriage and I'm interested in marriage, we can have that conversation. Why? Because we are on the same wavelength. But let's be clear, if a woman or man brings up the topic of marriage or even inform you that they do want to get married or they're dating with the intent to get married, they're not saying they want to get married to you. That's not what they're going to say. That's not what they're saying. And I don't know, I get it. Now, that's what they're saying. First date, then there's possible concern. But I don't know too many grown, matured individuals that are having conversations that are telling you that they want to get married, that they're interested in being married. The whole purpose of dating and courting is to be married. It's telling you at the onset, it's you. They don't know you. They don't know you. So that is not what they're saying, okay? So don't fall for that. Any man or woman that's turned off by you talking about marriage in your initial conversations, walk away from them. They're not serious. They can't be. Because, like Shantae said, just because I said they are your marriage doesn't mean that you're the husband to be. It doesn't mean that. It just means I'm telling you what my interest is. It's just telling you I need to reclaim my time from you, you know exactly why. Why? Because you're not interested in, you're funny. You're not interested in the same thing as I am, and that's okay. We have to be okay with people not wanting the same things. Yes, Tia, that would be a red flag. And vice versa. If you know you don't want to be married and this person is talking about marriage, they want family, kids, and to walk down the aisle and meet you at the altar or just be at the altar. They got a whole Pinterest board ready. And you know you're just trying to kick it. Why are you still dating them? They've already told you what they want. They've already told you. So you should go ahead and let them go. Let them know we don't have the same interests. We don't have the same end goal. Go ahead and tell them that. And it's fine. If you're just dating for sex, guess what? There's somebody out there that's doing the same thing. So be upfront about it. We're grown. Let's say that. We're grown. We're mature people that we can have these conversations. We ought to be able to have this conversation because what we find a lot of times, especially in modern society, people will rush to bed with you, but they're not in a rush to have conversations with you. How is that possible? You would like me to share my most vulnerable part about me, but we can't even be vulnerable in conversation. There's something very backwards about that. I'm going to let Shantae say, I'm going to let you know so that way if you think you're about to Netflix and chill, at the end of this date, poof, be gone. That's right. We proclaim death to Netflix and chill, right? And so many of us continue to date because we subscribe to it as the natural order of things. Some of us started dating as teens. I was one. I had my first boyfriend at 16, almost 17, I believe. And really because that was what everybody else was doing. It was a sign of maturity and earned responsibility or trust from or by our parents. We just assimilated into romantic relationships, barely establishing a friendship and coming together based on pure attraction and even lust. And so, as believers, we have an ability to reorchestrate and restore order, especially for those of you who are raising children. It's not enough for a child to say, I want a girlfriend or boyfriend. And they may say, I want a girlfriend or boyfriend, or I believe I'm old enough, mature enough to have a boyfriend or girlfriend because I'm a certain age, right? I was like 16, or I'm old enough. Or because everyone else is doing it, or they simply find someone attractive. The reality is that the relationships observed and formed at such a young age can influence and impact future relations that may be cultivated. A lot of us are shaped by our very first relationships, whether it was as a teenager, whether it was in college, whether it was in our 20s, or maybe you got married young. A lot of how we formulate future relations are based on those initial relationships or the relationships that we have observed. And so that's why it's even more important as parents, the relationships that you have, whether it's with that child's father or whether it's with someone else or the mother of your child, that's important what they see, because it's going to leave an imprint on how they date and how they entertain the opposite sex and how they will formulate opinions about marriage and other relationships just by observing those relationships that they see or partaking in such relationships at a young age. And so liking someone, especially based on their physical features, is not a sufficient reason to date them. We must realize we have someone's heart, the key to their emotions, in our hands. What we say, do, or don't say and do can have a huge impact on them, their future relationships, their path, positively and even negatively. Dating or courting comes with a level of responsibility for another. And if you're not up for the task, don't apply for the job and don't accept applications for the job. As always, I tell you that you're worth the wait. Man, female, doesn't matter. Especially for my ladies. Let me share this for my ladies. You're more than a sample at Costco's or Sam's, right? To me, you're a whole warehouse that embodies skills and wisdom, knowledge, favor, nurture, love, patience, kindness, and compassion. So that when you're unlocked by the right one, you'll help them give birth to their vision. You'll help them cultivate their purpose. You'll help them unleash their full potential. But your resources and your body is not to be assessed by everyone. You're more than a sample, man or woman. You're more than a sample. You're worth more. And so until people recognize that, people see you for that, you can't just entertain anybody and everybody. And so I encourage, I at this point, at this stage, and again, I can only speak for me, I expect to be courted. Why? Because I do have the desire to be married. And so, and it's for a period of time. And I'm okay with accountability. I'm okay with seeking wise counsel and getting the opinions of others. I'm okay with setting those parameters. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with, promoting sexual purity and having that be promoted and respected. I'm okay with those things. Why? Because I'm intentional about my time. I'm intentional about my purpose, and I don't want any more delays in life. I don't want any more detours. I don't want to have to keep reclaiming my time from people that shouldn't have had access to it anyway. And so when we look at it as that, then we understand the importance and the difference between dating versus courting. And so to those who just desire to date, understand that it may not have an end goal, and you should know that at the onset. But those who desire to be married, they should be very intentional from the onset. You should be willing to have that conversation. Have that conversation, especially before you lay down with them. If you're not practicing sexual purity, before you lay down with someone of the opposite sex, ask the question, where do you see us going? How do you see me? What do you want the end goal to be? And be willing to accept their answers. Don't be trying to change their mind. Don't think you're going to be the one that will alter their opinion. alter that direction. If they don't know what they see in you, they don't see your value at the onset, they don't see you as that wife, they don't see you as that husband, and you know that's who God called you to be, you know you have that desire, be willing to walk away. You're worth too much. God has put too much in you. God has given you too much value to settle for less or to not get his best, right? Because he's not going to bring you anything less than his best. And for me, if it's not kingdom, I don't want it anyway. And so that's my word for you on tonight. Thanks, Stephanie, for coming in. Go back and rewind to the beginning. Thank you for everybody that joined, or maybe you just joined in. I hope that what is shared with you, it ministered to you. Hopefully it had an impact upon you, especially those of you who are raising children. We just got to reorchestrate that thing. We have to reorder things because many of us, we were just shaped by, what we thought was good at the time, what we thought was best at the time. But we have the ability, thank God, to go back, right, and restore order in our lives. I am Gotti. Gotti says, put this on tape. The younger generation, you hear this word. And I do believe we just have to change it up. We have to change up and prepare for the next generation because let me add this. What I'm seeing is so disheartening that marriage is not valued. But the Bible speaks that marriage is something of value. That's something we should desire, right? And so it's very disheartening to see that, people don't care about marriage anymore. More importantly, people just don't even have respect for relationships in general. And so we have to be willing to change the narrative. How do we do that? We have to set the standard. We ourselves have to set the tone because it starts with us. And so then, therefore, when we, birth the next generation, it can continue. Why? Because they observed it, they saw. We didn't just preach it, we lived it. And so that's important for others to see. Remember that for some people, you may be the only God they see, because we represent God here on the earthly realm. And so when we walk this thing out and people see, okay, there's some fruit to that. They're bearing fruit to that message. They're bearing fruit to God's word, his principles, his promises, then maybe I too need to follow that, right? Because what I'm doing, what I'm subscribing to the world, subscribing to society isn't working for me. Right? It is not being fruitful. I come from a generation, of people that, didn't get married, had children out of wedlock, whatever it may be, constant divorce, or maybe they're married and it's not necessarily the best example. We have the ability to change that. And part of that is changing the mindset, changing the tone of the conversation, and sticking to those standards, sticking to those expectations, and not going below it. God has called us for so much more. I believe that in this hour, God is calling us to higher expectations, higher values, and higher in him, higher in his presence. And so when you do that, when you recognize that, you won't settle for less. It may require you to wait a little longer than what you expected, but understand what you're asking for is so worth the wait. You're worth the wait. That kingdom marriage, what will come forth from it, that which you all will come together and build, being a kingdom marriage that will be an example to not envied, and setting the tone for the next generation. And I believe even ministries will come from that. It's okay. And know that you're worth the wait. So that's my word. I hope that you receive it well. If you didn't get to share the video, please press share. Go ahead. There's some people. There's some singles, young and old, and young at heart, that do need to hear this message. And so I thank you for your support. I hope, I'm going to confirm, hopefully by tonight, there'll be a special guest next week dealing with dating concepts. So thank you. Good night. Appreciate you. And know that you're always worth the wait.